Okay. Welcome everyone. Welcome to another episode of Expert Elite World. My name is Tony Cockmore, president of the podcast. I started this podcast about 2 years ago, so it's been a while. It's been about a couple months since I've done another episode. Today's special guest is Mike Kingdon. Kington, right? So
Kingdon.
Kingdon, yeah. So
Yeah.
Mike, if you want to introduce yourself, tell me what you do at work, title, what software you use, and then we'll get going with our questions and stuff. So.
Gosh, where to begin? So I'm Mike. I'm from Manchester in the UK originally,
Mhm.
currently living in Auckland, New Zealand, and I'm a kind of like sort of drafty slash
Mhm.
design engineer. Sort of the term is kind of flexible, I
Yeah.
suppose. But I think predominantly a drafter,
Okay.
and I've been using Autodesk products gosh, for like 15, 20 years now.
Okay.
Started off on AutoCAD and then moved to Civil 3D. Been using Civil 3D for like the last 8 years and
Okay.
also use InfraWorks and dabble with QGIS and Recap and other
Okay. Cool.
flavors of design software.
Yeah. Do you dabble with like vehicle tracking also?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did quite a lot of vehicle tracking sort of in my early days where it was just AutoCAD and vehicle tracking, sort of learning to sort of
I,
land planes on
I
runways and
remember
stuff.
before vehicle tracking came out, everybody was, still using AutoTurn. I don't know if you've got to play with AutoTurn. That was from Transolve Solutions. I think they're
Hmm.
in Canada. So that was like pretty much the main, turning software that I know of that was out there if you're doing turning analysis for 18 wheelers and fire trucks and, garbage trucks and stuff like that. So, but did you ever get a chance to play with AutoTurn also?
I think it was auto turn. It was a while ago, but I remember it was on a separate computer. Like every other computer had
Yeah.
like AutoCAD, but then you
Yeah.
had the special vehicle tracking computer in
Yep.
the corner of the office, and you felt quite privileged when you got to do some vehicle tracking. You'd go to the special computer in the office and start driving virtual vehicles along,
Yeah.
intersections and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think it was auto turn, but now I
Yeah.
think it's been absorbed into sort of Civil 3D.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad they absorbed it in there. So I wish they can do that with other products and stuff like that. But maybe down the road. So all right, let's
Hmm.
go. So I have a question. So when did you first started using your very first Autodesk product? When do you remember when you started and what were you doing at that time?
So I think sort of fresh out of college, I was kind of torn between a few different career sort of directions. And I remember sitting down with my careers advisor, had a few ideas,
Mm,
but have dismissed a few quite quickly. I think professional badminton player was deemed, not an applicable career. Um, uh, Sort of paramedic was a different direction, but then
mhm,
I kind of settled on like either architecture or
mhm.
engineering. And then the careers advisor kind of pushed me towards looking at apprenticeships. So
Yeah.
I kind of got involved with a company in Stockport, had like a job interview set up. And I went to the office the day before just to see where it was. And then
Mhm.
I took some photos. And then I was kind of like using like sort of 3D software at the time, more in like video game sort of
Yeah.
like level creation. So I recreated the outside of the office using the software I use for like video game design,
Yeah.
and then showed them at my interview, and they were like blown away. I was just like, "Oh my God, you're doing 3D modeling already, and you haven't even
Yeah.
started engineering." So that job interview went very well. I got onto the apprenticeship program,
Mhm.
and then I kind of started on. I think it was like AutoCAD. It was an earlier version than the year. I think it was like 2008 or 2007 when I started, but I think they're still using like 1999 or
Mhm.
2000.
Okay.
Um, so that was kind of like my first flavor. I think it was actually something called Multi-Suite, which I think is AutoCAD, but modified for steel production.
Oh, okay.
But it was kind of not relevant to what I was doing. It was
Yeah.
just AutoCAD in disguise. So that was when I started, and then
Yeah.
like from that, I think we got like relatively new versions of AutoCAD then, like 2010 or something.
Yeah.
I remember that being quite exciting, like oh, new version of AutoCAD in the office and stuff. But predominantly, I think for the start of my career was AutoCAD Lite for like the first 5 or 10 years.
Yeah. So I think AutoCAD 2010 is when they introduced the ribbon. If you remember the ribbon chains because they had the old
Yeah.
plastic toolbars And then all of a
Mm.
sudden you saw the ribbon. Now it's more interactive. When you click on something, things change on the ribbon.
I
So
I
the
think I
contextual
remember being
ribbons.
against it at first. I was just like, oh, this just makes it, this is too newbie
Yeah,
friendly. Like, I like all the
it was.
500 icons and I know
Yep, yep,
whichever icon it is, or
yep.
like, oh, I just do everything on the keyboard. But
Yeah.
no, I don't think I could go back
I,
to not having the ribbon
I,
now.
it was 50-50. Some people hated it and some people loved it. But I think over time, people got adjusted to it and say, okay, we're going to get rid of the
Bre
50
yeah,
toolbars because
begrudgingly, they
now
start liking
you're
it.
not looking for those icons. The ribbon changes automatically when you click on a certain object, especially for Civil 3D.
Yes, it is very useful for that.
But I still had one person I was doing training. I think it was 2012, 2013. I was in a class and I'm doing civility training, and I had some young EIT, or not young EIT, but a designer engineer there. And he goes, I don't have that. And he goes, I don't have that on there. I said, and I went and looked. I said, where's your ribbon? I turned it off. I don't want to use it. I'm going to use a class of toolbar. I was like, well, for this class, you're going to have to learn to use the ribbon. He had put all the classic toolbars back in. And he goes, well, you have to show me how to use it with the classic toolbars. Like, well, some of these icons and tools are not on the classic icons. There's no icons for it,
Mm.
so I have to, if you want to do everything by command, you can. But that was a funny, interesting for somebody, turning off the ribbon and putting all the old classic toolbars on there. So, but
I
yeah,
think some people just like the workspace as it is,
yeah,
and I think when the new version comes out, they spend half an hour just customizing it to
yeah,
exactly how they like it. Um,
yeah,
I try to stay mostly vanilla with the
yeah.
program, but I do change a few things, add
That
a few icons. But
Same thing here. I've had one time a user where they customized it so much that one time there was a project due, let's say it was a Friday, and his workstation had crashed, got corrupted or something. And so we gave him a laptop to give me, hey, this, we got to get this thing in submitted today. Well, I came back, checked on him an hour later, he was still customizing his his computer. I was like, dude, we
mm,
don't have time for you to customize this stuff. He couldn't
yeah,
function. He could not function without his setup. I said, look, so I had a lunch and learn the next time with the group, the guys, you can't be sitting there customizing stuff and changing commands and changing your command alias. And, there's a perfect situation. I had to step in and finish the project for that submittal that day,
mm,
yeah, customization is great, but it's also a curse if people get too crazy with it. So,
yeah. I think
yeah,
especially if you become or you're in a position where you're helping other people in the office. So I'm kind of like the go-to person now when
yeah,
anyone's having a disagreement with Civil 3D. And I do find myself sometimes I'm customizing their workspace to more to
yeah,
like my liking, but only for like 30 seconds.
yeah.
Or there's like the prospector's missing. I was like, well, where's your prospector? You need that.
Well, I
But
mean, right click option is another big customization. People change their right click how that function if it's a return command, a repeat command, or enter or something. That right and left click on the mouse, people will customize that, and then you jump on
that
somebody
sounds
else's
like
computer. It's
madness.
like, oh, just right click that, and like mine doesn't do that. It just says enter. So,
Mm.
so that's one example of the customization people do, especially with their mouse and stuff. So, but yeah, yeah,
We have
um,
some users who have some of those sort of ergonomic mice where
yeah.
you kind of like there's
Oh
like a
yeah.
ball in the middle or something, and I
Hmm.
find those super hard to use.
Yeah, I got
So,
probably about 4 or 5 of those behind me on the shelf. Yeah, so and ergonomical. I think I got another two more over there. So I dabble around with those gaming mouses and stuff, and those old school mouses with the wheels and stuff like that. So,
mm.
but yeah, yeah. So,
I
um,
guess it's a balance. Like
it's a balance. Yeah.
you want to customize your workspace. You spend enough time there. Like I've got
Hmm.
my own mechanical keyboard and
Yeah,
stuff, but it also has to be somewhere where someone else can sit down and start working as well.
that's true. That's true. If everybody's kind of sharing the same computer, or you're out that day and you got an intern and wants to sit down and work. So yeah, that could be interesting. Especially if you change your keyboard and use the ergonomical keyboard, which I do. I
Oh
use the
yeah.
split keyboard. That would probably freak people out. And they're like, the keyboard's completely split, and they're trying to use it.
It's like alien technology to me. I was
Yeah.
just like, how do you even work with this? But maybe after a day, I couldn't go back. I'm not
It's
sure.
it's it's different for me because at home I've always used the split keyboard for 20 years. And at work, I have the regular gaming keyboard. So when I'm
Mm,
here at work, I feel like I'm like this, like a T-Rex, because I'm not sitting like this. With
mm.
so all the time, I'm like, why do I feel so crammed? So, but yeah, yeah. So it's an adjustment every day. I try to, get myself used to it. So, but
You
yeah,
probably adjust better for most people now.
yep. So, what was your training environment? So now that you've, how long have you been an expert lead? When did you get accepted into the
Um,
program? Do you recall?
I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago.
Hmm.
So I think I picked up. I think I started using Civil 3D in about sort of 2016.
Hmm.
I think I was learning it through I think LinkedIn or I think it was Lindell training courses
Lynda.com.
back then. Yeah,
Yeah, and
before
before
they
it got acquired
absorbed into
by
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn Learning, and then I think LinkedIn Learning, I think somebody else is acquired, about to acquire it or did acquire it. So, but
Hmm.
yeah,
So I
but
kind of perused with that for quite a bit,
yeah.
and
So,
then
what was that journey
yeah.
like? Were you more of a self-taught learning Civil 3D, or you taking a lot of classes? How did that journey go to get to that level?
I think it was sort of predominantly um, it's kind of like a hybrid,
Hmm.
where I think a lot of people, depends on which country, but university, they have like part of their like engineering course, they'll have like an AutoCAD or
Yeah,
like drafting class. I
yeah,
never had that at my university. So I learned AutoCAD predominantly just through the office, like
okay,
through sort of mentorship. And then I think with Civil 3D, that was a little bit more self-taught. We
okay,
did have a sort of guy come into the office and do like a crash course in Civil
yeah.
3D where like 2 or 3 days you're in the boardroom
Oh, with
just
a
having,
reseller or something? Yeah, training.
yeah, like a really cool dude, but it's
Yeah.
just, I think it's too much to take in.
Oh, yeah, it is.
I,
I'm always against those 3-day courses and stuff. Even though I still do it, they're my clients. I'm going to make them do what they want to make them happy. But I'm always against those when you come in. One time I had to do a 5-day, 8 hour straight course over
mm,
everything in Civil 3D, and it was so much. And there was 30 people in the class. But I told the owners like they're going to only retain 30% of this stuff, this knowledge.
mm,
We should have spread it out over several months and or several weeks and stuff, but they wanted to just go in, do a crash course, get everybody in there, all the power users and CAD managers. And so, but it's a lot of information to take in. And what's interesting
yeah,
is, a lot of people don't know is that even if you do like a whole week or 2 week course, that's still not all of Civil 3D. There's so much stuff that I don't even know. I've been using it since 2004, and they're just tools that are very specific to certain tasks. So and then they just keep adding features like the rail. I've never done a rail project, so I understand how to use some of the tools, but I never really applied it. The rail tools and stuff like that. So
mm.
same thing as Map 3D, was a separate, but majority of it is embedded into Civil 3D. So I use some of the map tools, but am I an expert in Map 3D? No, definitely not. So there's just it's such a big product and so many add-ins and stuff. So I've yet to find anybody that just knows all of it. It's just almost impossible, but just keep adding to it. There's just so much stuff in there because you got the hydraulic tools added into it, and you got the vehicle turning analysis kind of embedded into it. So there's so much a geotechnical module, the raster design stuff that sits on top. Just so many tools that you can embed into Civil 3D that you can use it. So even the 3D basic AutoCAD 3D modeling stuff that's in there, I've only used a couple stuff in there. So
I
yeah,
think it's a gift and a curse in the sense
yeah.
that like
Yeah.
it's quite an old software to keep adding tools on.
And that's
Like,
what I tell young designers, and they're getting into the product for the first time. Is that look, you will never use all of it, all these tools, these features. Don't let it overwhelm you. You will probably use at the beginning of the first 2 years 15% of all these tools, and then eventually you'll get to 20 and then 30, but maybe 50 after 5 years. But you'll never use 70% of all these tools. Trust me, I've yet
mm,
to use all the tools on projects and stuff. So. But I don't know if you recall, remember the old Mastering Civil 3D book? 1,200
I
page book.
Yeah,
You know,
I've got one on my desk, I think.
that's not even covering all the tools and features in Civil 3D. That probably
Yeah.
covers 60%, but not everything. So, and then now this new release of 2026, they got new features embedded in it. So it's such a huge product. I think I would say to me, it's probably the hardest software to learn than I don't know, maybe there in 3ds Max. Because I played around with 3ds Max. It's just I don't know. It's not very user friendly because the dialogues within dialog box, within pull down, within pull down, within pull downs. I don't know if you ever played in there. So I think that one's a harder one to learn. And then probably third would be Revit, so and
Yeah,
that's just my
I've dabbled
opinion, which one's
with
the hardest
both of
ones to
those.
learn.
I find Revit kind of very alien. I think it's just because my mind's so wired to
Yeah.
AutoCAD,
Yeah.
and then Revit, you have all these like folder structures and
Yep.
families. I'm like, what's a family?
Yep.
I don't understand, and I just get angry and turn off the software.
Exactly. So lucky for me, I got a lot of Revit experts that I know, and I'll ask them questions like, oh, okay, and they teach me like I'm a brand new CAD person learning Revit,
Hmm.
So, but yeah, yeah.
I've,
So
that's,
personal questions, okay.
mhm.
Are you into sports? And if you are, what kind of sports are you into? What's your favorite team? It could be ra drag racing or speed racing. It could be, hockey or any kind of sports. What kind of sports are you into?
I'm sort of I do like outside of engineering,
Mhm.
my other job
Yeah.
is photography. So
Okay.
I do a lot of sports photography. So I kind
Oh,
of
wow.
I try not to follow a particular team because I kind of when I'm doing my photography work, I have to be like kind of neutral.
Neutral.
So I photograph a lot of ice hockey here in New
Okay.
Zealand. It's a up and coming sport.
Okay.
So we have like local teams, and I'm actually going down to the South Island in a few weeks to photograph the World Qualifiers.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's
So
cool.
it's a unique opportunity to photograph like I
Yeah.
think Belarus
Yeah.
and sort of China and Ukraine are all coming. And like
Yeah.
when do you have the opportunity to photograph the Ukrainian ice hockey team? So I guess my interest in sport is tied in with my photography. So I like all
Okay.
sport because they're just a really good
Yeah.
sort of opportunity to
That's
photograph
cool.
people doing really cool things,
Yeah.
the passion and
Yeah.
commitment and
Yeah.
putting their bodies on the line to, you
Yeah.
know, try and beat the opposition. And it's yeah, it's there's never a dull moment when you're
Yeah.
photographing something like ice hockey.
Yeah. Oh, I love ice. I love hockey. Those guys, take a beating and then be able to balance themselves on a blade and still take a beating and stuff like that. So it's so impressive their athletic ability. So
Yeah, it's
um,
strangely dexterous and aggressive at the same time.
yeah,
It's a weird combination.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I try to keep up with the Dallas Stars here, and they're pretty good. They usually make the playoffs, but then they get knocked out usually the first round. So, but
Hmm.
I try to follow that. The one of the really cool things that I always enjoy seeing sometimes is when they do the outdoor special events with. I forgot where we're up north. They have it once a year, once every few years, where they actually have a game outside hockey game out in the cold. I always think that's pretty amazing. So.
Like
Uh,
on a pond, I assume,
it's some
or with
some field that
rollerblades.
they built one. Yeah, they
Hmm.
built a stadium, and I don't know if it's a real pond or man-made pond or something. So it's pretty cool when they do something like that, and everybody's sitting out in the cold watching this hockey game. So
Hmm.
I forgot what they call it, but it happens. I don't know if it happens every year, but I think it's pretty cool when they do stuff like that when it's outdoor, unique in situations like that. So, but yeah.
I used to live in Canada. So when I used to, I grew up in Manchester and
Hmm.
then took a career break, moved to Canada
Hmm.
and started working as a photographer
Hmm.
there. And I lived in the ski resort, Lake Louise.
Yeah.
And I think they have like the highest hockey tournament in the world,
Oh, wow.
supposedly. So there's a very beautiful lake,
Yeah.
Lake Louise, and
Yeah.
it freezes in the winter, and they have like some teams come there
Yeah.
to play ice hockey.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely beautiful. It's like one of the most beautiful places in the world. You have
Yeah.
like this frozen lake, you have like these snowy mountains in the
Oh,
background,
that's
and people are
cool.
just playing hockey. It's amazing. If you ever get the
Cool.
chance to go, it's worth doing.
Well, I've been traveling a lot more lately, so I'm going to continue traveling. I got a bucket list. I'm actually going to try to work out to go to the Winter Olympics now for the first time. I went last year with, well, now my ex-girlfriend. We went to Paris for the Summer Olympics for our first time. That was both our first time ever going to any Olympics and stuff. So we had an amazing time
Hmm.
going to Paris for the Summer Olympics. Now I want to go to Italy. No, in France. Is it Italy? No, it's Italy for the Winter Olympics and stuff like that. So yeah.
How was your
So,
experience in Paris?
yeah, I don't know. Remember in the beginning, did you tell everybody where you're from, where you live right now currently?
I live in Auckland,
Where is
in New
that?
Zealand now.
New Zealand. New Zealand, right? New Zealand, right?
Yeah, the
So,
corner of
if
the world.
somebody was coming to New Zealand, what would be the number one spot to go? Your opinion
Um,
as a
I
visitor.
think as a visitor, I would tell them to go to the South Island
The South
as early as
Islands?
possible. So, yeah, New Zealand is North Island and South
Mhm.
Island, and
Okay.
the North Island is probably the more sensible place to live. It's
Okay.
the larger cities. If you're looking for a job,
Okay.
North Island is the better place.
Okay.
But the South Island is absolutely stunning. Like
Okay.
it's very, very beautiful in the South Island. So, if you have like a month, I'd say maybe spend 1 week in the
Hmm.
North Island and three
Okay.
weeks in the South Island.
Okay. Oh, good to know. Good to know. Okay, so here's a question for you. If you had total control of Autodesk and you could do anything you wanted, what would you change about Civil 3D or even AutoCAD? What would you change? What would you want to say, yeah, we're going to change it. Programmers make it happen.
Oh gosh,
I know it's
there's
a
lots of
tough
like
one.
little nitpicky things that probably only
Yeah.
that only would benefit myself.
Well, I mean,
Um,
it could benefit, you'd be surprised, it could benefit other people, in other regions of the world. So uh, that do the same work you do because everybody works on different types of projects.
I think the thing that would benefit most people is just um, more hand-holding when it comes to certain workflows. So I feel
Hmm.
like people they will try and work on something will stop working, and the software doesn't really explain why this thing isn't working. Like,
Hmm.
and I think more explanation is needed.
Okay.
So like I think with like the issue with like circular references, if you're pasting surfaces
Yeah.
together and you're also targeting a surface, it won't do it. And
Yeah.
you'll just get like an X in a surface. It's
Yeah.
not saying like, oh, you're targeting this surface, therefore you can't paste it into this surface. There's no explanation.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of pitfalls that
Yeah.
I think inexperienced users struggle with.
Yeah.
And you mentioned how there's like a whole breadth of tools with
Hmm.
Civil 3D, and I think a lot of people kind of just stay almost like in the shallow end in terms of
Hmm.
tools
Yeah.
because they try something like a new workflow and they'll encounter an error, and the software is not really explaining why it's not working as they
Yeah.
expect it to. So I
Yeah.
think I think it would
Yeah.
help people, utilize more depth of the software if
Yeah.
it explains why things aren't working as they should do.
Okay. Okay. That's a good one. That's a good one. I told everybody else it'd be very unique if I could have like the AOC connection. It's all part of the ribbon where I could just flip back and forth between different applications. So let's say I'm in Civil 3D and I can go to like a workspace and now I flip over to Revit and I can flip over to Navisworks and flip over and I'm just changing the interface with a button and be
That
able
would
to
be
open
cool.
the model and you're
Yeah,
in one application the whole time. So
somewhere between like Revit and Civil 3D talking to each other would be
yeah,
good. I think it's still
yeah,
pretty crazy that like architect software and engineering software just still haven't managed
yeah,
to, come to the same location.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
just yet. There are workflows around it, but
yeah,
it's not native. You have to do
yeah,
a few steps before you put the building in the right
yeah,
place.
yeah, yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. Yep, yep, yep. Do you have any special tips you like to share about Civil 3, even AutoCAD? What would you like to
Um,
share to a beginner, intermediate user, even a power user? What's some helpful tips that you would provide?
I think and the problem that I sometimes encounter where we have like new people in the office
Hmm.
who are sort of trying to grapple with Civil 3D. They've had some formal training. I think once people have had training,
Hmm.
there's an expectation of them to be able to just run with the software. Where I
Yeah,
think, like you said, it's I think training is good to make you aware of these tools in the software, but I think learning how to actually use them takes more time.
yeah,
I think the best tip I would give anyone is don't suffer in silence.
yeah.
Like if you're grappling with the software, I feel like sometimes people don't want to ask questions, especially if they spend like maybe 2 or 3 hours trying to
That's
do something. They feel
definitely
like
true.
there's kind of like a sunk cost, and if they ask for
Yeah,
help, the person's going to turn around and be like, "Well, what have you been doing for the last 2 or 3 hours?" Like just ask. Like
yeah,
I
yeah,
think I think yeah, don't be afraid to ask lots of questions.
yeah,
Even if the person is helping you is a bit grumpy, they're probably busy themselves. Just ask. Like it's
yeah, yeah,
sometimes you'll there'll be a solution that takes 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and you've you're not aware of it. And
Yeah.
once the person comes and helps you, you're so much better off for
Yeah.
it now. You've learned something new.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I think
Yeah,
that's
I've
how
seen it
I
all the
mostly
time
learnt is
as a
just
CAD manager when you work in a big room and everybody's in the same room. I would
mm,
sit behind a bunch of people and I would watch their screen, watch them try to figure something out. And after about an hour of watching them, I'm like two rows back. I'm asking myself, why don't just they turn around and just ask come ask
mm,
me? And so sometimes they're scared to ask, or scared to let people know that they're not as high knowledgeable of the software is where there should be. But and some people will just say, hey, I want to figure it out. I'm kind of stubborn. I want to figure it out. I got to figure it out. And there's nothing wrong with that either. But if you spend 2 or 3 hours trying to figure something out during company time, when you could have just asked some power user or CAD manager or BIM manager, hey, how do you do this? You can learn it faster, so and get that project done faster. But hey, sometimes when I can't figure something out, I'll just text one of my buddies, say, hey,
mm,
dude, either I forgot how to do it and say, hey, how do you do this again, man? I haven't done it in like 6 months. And I totally forgot to do it. And I don't want to sit there and try to Google it and try to find it on YouTube or the forums. And you go in the forums, you're going to get like 20 different answers. And
mm.
so it doesn't mean they're all wrong or something, but you're going to get 20 different answers or 20 different workflows how to do it, to get to the end point. So, but yeah,
I think
yeah,
there's a
it's
certain way
a
of
challenge.
asking what the problem is because I was going to suggest like I think one of the ways I learned is I would do as much as I can.
Hmm.
But then if I encountered a problem, at the end of the day, I would write what the issue is, and
Hmm.
then I'd post it in the forum, and then I'd sort of come back the next day because
Yeah,
of it'll be like daytime in the US when it
yeah.
was nighttime in New Zealand. By that point, someone smarter than me is already like, "Oh yeah, you could try this, this, and
Hmm.
this," and I'm like, "Of course!" Like, why didn't I think of that? So I found that was quite an efficient way of sort
Yeah,
of learning, but it did require some knowledge of trying to describe like there's some people in the forums who will just say, "Oh, how do I grade? Or how do I do grading?" It's just like, well, there's too much to unpack. Like, what exactly are you struggling with in terms of
yeah.
grading and
What are
stuff?
you
So I
grading? What
think
are you grading? Is it a parking lot? Is it a ditch, or is it what is it? Steps, sidewalks? A residential subdivision? What exactly are you
I
grading? I
think
need more
targeted
detail.
questioning can help
Yeah,
developments a lot. But you
yeah,
have to have a bit of appreciation of the task first, and then I think it's much more
yeah,
efficient to get help.
yeah, yeah. Um, what would you say is probably the hardest thing to learn in Civil 3D based on your experience?
Um, I think um, I think one there's a few sort of serious roadblocks, I think.
Hmm.
I think one thing that jumps out at me straight away is the fact that Civil 3D is software that's built on top of AutoCAD.
Hmm.
So I think it's okay for me because I spent the first half of my career using AutoCAD,
Hmm.
became competent with that, and
Yeah.
then picking up Civil 3D wasn't too difficult. Where I find if people are just trying to pick up Civil 3D to begin with,
Oh yeah.
there's a sort of a border between when AutoCAD finishes and Civil 3D begins. And I
Hmm.
think that could be really difficult for some people. Like
Yeah.
they'll, there's an object and it's red, and they're like, oh, but it's on the layer is blue. Why is the object red? And it's like, oh, it's because the styles have made
Yeah.
it red. It's like, what the
Yeah.
hell is a style? And then like,
Yeah.
well, you need to go to the style layer to change the color. And it's just,
Yeah.
I think that conflict between like styles and layers is just something that
Yeah.
melts people's
That's
brains.
that's usually the first thing I point out in day one, hour one, when I'm teaching somebody Civil 3D, if they have basic AutoCAD knowledge, and I'll just tell them like, hey, AutoCAD is layer based. Civil 3D is style based, and there's a big difference. So when you change layers and change the color of a layer, and nothing happens because it's being controlled by a style, and that trips people up all the time, and they be changing
Hmm.
colors and colors, and like, what is going on? They'll go to a style and they'll change the style, but they'll change it in the wrong. They go to display, but they change the plan, but they were trying to do profile. So yeah, the whole style things does trip people up a little bit. So
I
um,
think terminology can be difficult as well. Like I keep telling people like, oh, where's your prospector? And I think that's maybe that's like more common in the US where
Yeah,
I think it's not a term for people in other parts of the world are used to, or
yeah,
the settings tab is where the styles are controlled.
yeah,
Why is it not called the styles tab? It's just like what is a style anyway? It's just terminology. There's a bit of
yeah,
buy-in where like things begin to make sense.
yeah, yeah. The one thing I enjoy is when somebody's coming from a different platform, let's say Bentley, open roads or open roads and site roads, and I'm trying to tell them the same thing. Like let's say the layers in Civil 3D is like, oh yeah, if you remember levels in Bentley, this is layers in AutoCAD. So I try to associate the two, even though
Hmm.
I'm not a Bentley specialist. I've dabbled in it way back 15 years ago and I haven't touched it since. But I try to tell them, like, okay, you remember what you did in Bentley? Yeah, yeah. Well, this is how you do it in AutoCAD and Civil
Hmm.
3D. And this is what the same dialog box are just different terminologies, like you mentioned. So,
That's good. If you can sort of link their Bentley
yep,
knowledge to
yep.
Civil
Yeah, so
3D.
sometimes I have to go back and look at a YouTube video of Bentley and like, okay, that's what I need to tell them. It's this dialog box. This is what it is in Civil 3D to help them out so they can connect
Yeah.
the two.
Sort of
So,
translate the different
mhm. Yep.
terminologies from
Yeah.
one to the
So
other.
I do get a lot of clients that are cross-training from Bentley to Civil 3D, especially for like transportation projects and stuff like that. So I try to help them out. But like you mentioned, if somebody doesn't have basic AutoCAD and they're learning Civil 3D, that does become a challenge because they don't have basic AutoCAD knowledge.
Hmm.
So, but yeah, and sometimes it is nice too because they didn't learn layer based. Now we're going straight to style based, and they don't get confused between the two, you know. But yeah,
I think
okay,
they can learn. It's just
yeah,
the steepness of the
yep,
slope is
yep,
quite, I think, overwhelming to begin with.
yeah, yeah. So when you were training, you said you did a little self-training. You know, everybody learns in a different way. Were when you were doing self-training, are you more of a repetition, more of a visual, more of a I need a book and handout, or you know, what was your method? Because everybody kind of learns a different method. I'm more of a visual. I'll watch a video once and I'm pretty much done. But if you give me a handout, I have to read it over and over. Sometimes I don't get it, you know, or a book, you know. So I learned that books didn't help me. I'm more of a visual person. I can look at it, and then that's kind of it. I don't really need a repetition and stuff. I can just watch a video, and then I'm good to go. But other people know they need that step-by-step direction, and then some people need that one-on-one interaction because they're gonna have a lot of questions. Okay, why am I pushing this button, or why am I doing this? So what kind of I guess your learning method for you? What how did you learn? You know, with that self-training?
I think I like to tinker a lot, so
Yeah.
I think like a video or like one-on-one guidance to begin
Hmm.
with is very good. But then after I've learned to pick up a corridor,
Yeah.
I then were like, oh well, how far can I take this? And then I start like adding things and
Hmm.
start sort of
There you go.
messing
Yep.
around with things. I
Exploring with
try
it. Yeah.
to test things until they
Yep.
break, and then I'm like, okay, I feel like I've reached the limit of what this tool can do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I've sort of, I guess it's more of a scorched earth approach. Like I
Yep.
picked up a tool, I want to learn as much as I can with it
Yeah.
by using it in many scenarios as possible, and then sort of scale it back to finding out what the tool is actually most useful for.
Yeah. Yeah. And sometimes I tell people just because the tool's there doesn't mean you have to use it. There's different methods to complete a certain task. Uh,
Hmm.
for example, somebody asked me, hey, if I have a straight road, it's only 500 feet. Do I corridor it? Do I do feature lines? Do I do grading groups? And typically I said, well, it's going to be a judgment call on you. You know, if it's a straight road and you don't want to spend time creating alignments and profiles and corridors and sub-assemblies, you can use grading groups. You know, it's real simple, you know, to grade do a grading group. You know, some people are like, no, I don't. I had bad taste with grading groups in 2009. Remember the 2007, 9, 11? Those were really buggy with grading groups. Like, no, I had a bad taste. I don't do grading groups, and they'll just feature line it. You know, they'll just create a bunch of feature lines and stuff like that. So, but yeah, as a training consultant, for me, I always had to try to figure out how those clients learn the best. Am I going to create a handout, step-by-step direction, or am I going to do like a lot of training one-on-one, a lot of repetition and stuff like that? So that's always a learning thing for me is, you know, trying to figure out how can I, you know, relay this information to them best, you know? So some people, yeah, I had to write a 100-page manual for them. Some people, you know, some clients. And so, but yeah. Um, are you as an expert lead? do you ever go on the forums a lot and answer questions, or do you write any blogs, or how do you stay active in the community?
Mostly the forums.
Okay.
I've dabbled a little bit with sort of writing content, and it's
Yeah.
something I would like to do more of this year.
Yeah.
I think I've got to the point where I've made quite a lot of well, I've learned how not to do things in Civil 3D, and um, I kind of want to make content where I'm explaining how to do things, and so other people don't fall into my pitfalls, or
Yeah.
sort of don't try and model something in a way where it will break.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I think most of my contribution is in the forums.
Hmm.
I think that's where I learned where basically
Yeah.
I would grapple with Civil 3D,
Yeah.
encounter something that's unexpected, ask a question, someone smarter than me would
Yeah.
come and answer it. And I guess I got to the point where I wasn't really asking the questions anymore. I was kind of answering them. And
Yeah.
sort of that transition happened over many years. But I think what caught the community manager's eye most, which I think got me my nomination, is I posted this big sort of topic on the forum where I was asking for critiquing. So I
Hmm.
just finished like this big project,
Hmm.
and the model was huge. It was like a 100 megabyte drawing, and I basically wrote down like a really detailed post about how I modeled it. And I think like this is coming back from my like photography sort of development is that the best way to learn is just to have people rip apart what you've done.
Yeah.
It's
Get
painful,
some
but basically
constructive
say,
criticism or anything.
yeah, yeah, obviously don't just say nasty things, but say
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
why do my photos suck? Or
Yeah.
like, what did I do wrong here? And I was quite surprised where everyone was just like, oh, this is fantastic. Like, oh, this is a really you should write
Mhm.
like a training course. I was like, no, this is I want to know what I did wrong. Like,
Yeah.
but I think I stumbled upon mostly successful
Yeah.
modeling, and
That's
I
good. Yeah.
think people liked the fact that I wrote so much, sort of detailing everything. And there
Mhm.
were some people who said like, "Oh, actually, you could have just done this instead of this." And I was like, oh, "Yeah, that's a great idea. I'll do that next time." But I think the fact that I was so open about
Yeah.
here's how I did things, please comment, and I
Mhm.
think that
Yeah.
really the community really liked that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I want to say I got nominated into the group and accepted the group 2014 or 2015. I have to go look. Yeah, and so I was writing a blog. It was called Tony Civil 3D World. So I was a CAD manager slash senior designer. And so I was blogging every week of what I was doing. I was like, hey, I'm doing grading. This is the dude. No, I got crashed. There's an update, and I was blogging a lot. The first year I think I blogged, I think, oh my goodness, I think I had 174 blogs in one year, blog posting and stuff. So,
Guess you
um,
had a lot to say.
yeah, and I'm sitting there working. I was working late, so I work and then I stay late till 7 to 9 o'clock, writing about st different things about Civil 3D and what I've learned, and just sharing my knowledge, as I went. So, um, and eventually Autodesk invited me to do a blog post one time. So, but now you got the Autodesk community blogs where you can go write a simple, short blog, tips and tricks about different platforms or and workflows and stuff like that. So now they have, you can do stuff like that with Autodesk and stuff. I've done one or two on there, but I focus most of my time on the user group, on there. So, and I answer technical support questions on the user group platform. So, some stuff doesn't get posted on the group chat. It gets posted as a private chat question to me. So I guess some of the users don't want to see the other users see their questions. So they're more
Hmm.
private. So,
That's
um,
understandable. I
but
think it's
once
good
in a while, I
to
might go into the user group, but usually it's late at night because I'm a night owl. I'm kind of an insomniac, so I'll jump on at 2 in the morning and then start. I might jump in and start answering a few questions on Civil 3D or AutoCAD or vehicle tracking or InfraWorks, and see. I typically look for the ones that no one has answered at all or even attempted. Those are the ones I usually go after. Is like I don't look at ones that's got 20 questions or 20 answers already. I look at those ones that has zero response. It's like, okay, maybe can figure this out. I'll try to
yeah.
tackle it out, because if somebody posts something, no one responds, it kind of discourages people and like, okay. So if somebody at least attempts to that, invite the person to come back, again and look. So,
You're
So
probably saving someone's day. They're
yeah.
getting upset that their first post hasn't really been a hit, and then you come along and sort of boost them back up again.
500 views, zero response.
Yeah. I
So
do that sometimes, but I find sometimes those questions are the ones that are very open-ended.
yeah,
So I'll occasionally go in and be like, "Oh, are you able to provide the drawing, or like, can you
yeah,
provide a
exactly.
screenshot?" It's just to nudge them along to
Yeah,
try and get the right answer.
yeah. It's really hard sometimes to give them an answer without a CAD file because you've got to get into that CAD file, see what they were doing, especially
Hmm.
with corridors and grading. I really need to look at it and go look at their surface definition. I can look and see the whole history of what they've done. And like, okay, I see what you did here, there, there. Okay. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's the forums. I don't get on as I used to. I used to get on a lot, but not more. Now I'm doing stuff with Autodesk and the forums and I mean the user group and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
podcasts stuff like this. So spend my time doing that, and then doing tech support for my clients too. So I do a lot of tech support for my clients and stuff like
It all
that.
depends
So
on workloads, but
yeah, it's
I used to go on the forums more. I've been quite busy recently, so
yeah,
it varies like how long I have my lunch break for. I
yeah.
might take 10, 15 minutes, just log on, answer
And
a
I
few
try to
questions.
encourage people to do some self-training during lunch. That's the perfect time to sit there, eat lunch, and watch a video or read a blog post. That's the best time to learn. I know some people don't want to give up their personal time, but that's how I did it for 15 years, is giving up my lunchtime and sit there writing blogs or just playing around with the product, with Civil 3D and say, hey, can I do this? And sitting there all greasy, my mouse is all greasy with grabbing a burger and stuff. But
Hmm.
yeah. So I guess my next question is, if you had more time, free time, okay, what software would you want to learn? What other software would you want to learn? What's something that you really wish you had time to learn?
Um, I would like to understand Revit more.
Mhm,
I've had it on various computers and I've
mhm,
dabbled with it, but it's just I've always given up because I've just not been able to have the time for it.
mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think it's the way that like AutoCAD and Revit are
Mhm.
different products. And I think if you come into Revit
Yeah.
thinking it's like AutoCAD, you're just gonna
Yeah.
have a hard time. So I almost need to, I feel like I almost need to unlearn AutoCAD to have a
Yeah.
better sort of
So
entry into Revit. But learning or at least
yeah,
knowing enough to be dangerous in Revit would be useful.
would it be what would be the reason for it? Is it to make simple edits if an architect gave you a model and like, oh, let me change this really, really quick, and they collaborated with you and gave you the actual file, or you're in the ACC cloud, you can access their file and stuff like that. Would that be the main reason, or just to coordinate better with them? Say, hey, I looked at your model. Can you turn this, and off and send it back to me or something? Or what
Yeah,
would
I
be
think
that reasoning?
mostly for coordination, because
Okay.
I this is the reason why I use InfoWorks quite a bit, is I like the holistic approach where like
Mm-hmm.
I like to see everything together in one space. So
Yeah.
I I just I like the idea of seeing the roads that I'm working on and
Hmm.
then being able to put the house in the right
Yeah.
location. And then we could just see what the whole thing's gonna look like at the
Yeah.
end. I do sometimes think there's construction projects where you have like the concept, and then when
Hmm.
the thing's finished, you're just like, that doesn't quite look the same. So I kind
That
of always
does
want to
happen.
avoid that. I want to see everything in one place.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It does happen at times, so I've noticed that. Um, but yeah, that's a good example. Is be able to collaborate and look at a model, and I think that's where they're trying to push that ACC, cloud, be able to collaborate better on the cloud and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, I think
um,
there's some developments there, but I think there's a
yeah,
lot of
we just
technical
the
stuff
gap
that I don't
between Revit and
understand.
Civil
But
3D is still too big, honestly. They still need more ways to collaborate easier and stuff. And same thing for, Navisworks, being able to everything be dynamically where I can open up Navisworks and I have a model there and it notices automatically, hey, there's been changes. I can push a button. Same thing in 3ds Max. I can push a button, we got to get away from this, import new XML file and import this being it's not dynamic. You got to re-import the file back in to update it. So,
hmm.
but yeah, that's something that would be really nice. So,
Yeah, and I think it'd be very useful, especially like I think with AutoCAD, Civil 3D users. Everything we see is just a black screen and lines.
yeah.
And I think being able to see that in a 3D environment just
Hmm.
helps you just appreciate the model more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
anything that allows you to visualize what you're working on
Mhm.
along with other professionals, I think
Yeah.
is a good direction to go forward in.
Yep. Okay, now back to some personal questions. Okay. So what do you do for fun outside of the work as a hobby? What's your one of your hobbies that you do? Um, um, it could be something like some people are into guitar, some people play, recreational sports.
Hmm.
Okay, so what's some hobbies you have? And some people do community stuff for like charity organization, they're highly involved, or church functions. And what's some things that you are involved outside the office, even with family and
Uh,
stuff. It could be with, hey, I'm a coach for my kids, softball team or something.
hmm. Well, mentioned photography, that's also kind of
Yep.
a big part of my life. And I guess that kind of straddles the border of like a hobby and a job.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like a love-hate thing. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it can be a bit stressful, but I also very much enjoy it. I do a lot of running. I think that
Hmm.
seems to be something that everyone does in Auckland is I think it's almost like you come off the plane and be like, oh, welcome to
Yeah.
Auckland. Here's your running shoes. This is what
Hmm.
you're going to do now. This is what you go do every 3 days is to
Yeah.
run somewhere. And I think other than that, it's just a lot of travel. So my partner and
Hmm.
we moved to Thailand 2 years
Okay.
ago.
Yeah.
So we spent like 6 months living in Thailand, and then
Oh,
every
that's cool.
month we do like a visa run. So
Okay.
you have to renew your visa by crossing the border and come back again, but we turn that into a trip. So we spent a week in
Okay.
Cambodia, week
Oh,
in
wow.
Laos, week in Vietnam. It's so essentially, yeah, I think my life kind of oscillates between either working or doing travel.
Okay.
So this has been like a work period. Maybe next year we'll go
Yeah.
back to a travel period, sort of. Yeah, so I think weekly activities it's just mostly work and photography
Photography.
and running.
So what kind of camera? I'm kind of curious. I've been watching a lot of YouTube channels about cameras and stuff like that. So what kind of camera do you use, for photography? Is it a Canon or is it, what's some other
I've
ones out there?
yeah, I've used I kind of used like a broad range of cameras,
Okay.
and I think it can be there's like different brands and there's lots of like
Yep.
brand loyalty.
Yep.
I try not to be too brand loyal, but I'm personally a Nikon shooter
Yep.
myself. I don't have any problems with anyone who shoots other, but I
Yep.
like Nikon for myself, so
Yep. That was
that's
another one.
my
Yep.
preferred camera. So actually have it within arm's distance, but this is my Nikon.
Oh yeah.
So
Yep.
that's what I photograph with.
Yep. And it's
And
I've
then my
heard
partner's got a
my
spool
understanding is
Nikon.
sometimes the lens are even sometimes more expensive than the whole camera in some of
Hmm.
them. So I've seen some in the thousands, like that's crazy, a lens and $4,000 or $5,000 for a lens.
Yeah, I was on the fence about buying that camera for a while because I had
Yeah.
like a sort of a mid-range camera,
Hmm.
and then there was a shop. This was when I was in living in Thailand.
Yeah.
There was one model of that camera in Bangkok, and it
Hmm.
was going for like a really discounted price. So I actually bought a flight to fly from from Chiang Mai to Bangkok, took a taxi to the shop, bought
Yeah.
the camera, then flew back to Chiang Mai.
Wow.
It's just because, yeah, it's just had I bought it in another
Yeah.
country, it would have been a lot more money. But it's just like I can't pass on this deal. It's way more money than I normally buy on the camera, but the discount is
Yeah.
just made me buy it.
Yeah. Wow, that's some dedication. Well, is the flights cheap from there to Bangkok then?
Yeah, it was
Okay.
yeah, I think the time of year and stuff as well, like
Okay.
the flights were
Okay.
inexpensive and yes. It sort of felt like everything had aligned where like
Yeah.
you have to buy this camera, Mike. So
Yeah. Okay, now let's talk about AU. Have you ever been to Autodesk University?
I've not had the
Yeah.
opportunity yet. So I think I became an EE a few years ago. I think it was kind
Mhm.
of like during the COVID time, possibly.
Mm.
And just yeah, with like the trip to Thailand and stuff, I just we haven't sort of allocated enough space to come to
Yeah.
the US for
Yeah.
AU. It's something that I would like to do at some point in
It's an
the
experience. I
future.
always encourage people to go at least once. I've been 6, 7 times, but I haven't been in the last 4 years. To me, I kind of gotten worn out from going so many times. But I always encourage people to just go experience it one time because now some people are like, they love the software, they love to teach, they love gadgets, and you go there and you're among people that have the same passion as you. You got the big exhibit halls with all these 3D printers and, software, even computer workstations and gaming equipment, and, you name it, drone companies, and everybody's there. It's kind of like a mini CES, in our industry, basically. So I always encourage people to go there, and you got what 60, 80 different countries there, with 15 to 20,000 people there from engineers, architects, and surveyors and drone pilots and stuff like that. So it's always been
Yeah.
a fun opportunity. Now, I've always wanted to go to one of these other ones, these international ones. I know the big one is in Vegas, or they move it around now. That's a 3-day event. Um, but now they actually have, for a while they've had those 1-day events in what, Germany and some Japan. Is it Japan and somewhere in South America, Brazil, or I think so. I've always wanted to go to one of those events. I've been invited by Autodesk from one of those events and stuff like that. I said, well, you're going to pay for all that, to travel all that for one day, so because it's going to take me one day to get there and stay there for one day, that'd be
I
tough for me
suppose
to go.
you'd have to build a holiday around it. Like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, well, I can come to Argentina,
yeah.
but then I'm going to spend 2 weeks traveling Argentina.
Exactly. I wouldn't.
But
I would stay there for a good week or two,
hmm.
So, but I'd love to go to one of those other ones and stuff. So, and just see what it's like and experience it. So,
I think it'd
but
be great. It's definitely something I want to do because I'd like to meet like-minded people. I think
yeah,
when your career is so sort of focused on
yeah,
software, it's nice to have other people to talk to about
yeah,
software and stuff. So
yeah,
I think that's one of the reasons
it,
why I do partake in the forum is just
mhm,
I could talk to people
yeah,
who are like-minded like myself, and I
yeah,
think it's just good for not going to go too deep, but it's just good for your mental health
yep.
to have like your community and have people to talk to.
Yeah, so I don't know if you knew, but during AU they have a private event just for us. So I don't know if they still do it, but for many years they would call it the Expert Elite Summit. So when everybody's leaving, ours kicks off the fourth day, and we have a whole day to ourselves, and we get to have we get to have our own interview with the CEO and CTO, and sometimes COO is there. And then we kick off little branch off. We have meetings with our development team, which is Tim and Dave and the InfraWorks guy teams, and then the other AutoCAD team members and project leaders and stuff like that. So we have like little round tables, which was really cool. And you sit now, you can do face to face with these product managers and stuff like that. So that was something you would definitely wanted to attend. Hopefully that's still going on. But that was a fun thing where everybody's leaving. Now we're having this private little session just for expert leads. And you're among other experts and we're brainstorming, we're collaborating, we're trying to figure out, best methods and industry best practices. So that's always a fun little event too, the Expert Lead
Hmm.
Summit. So
No, that
uh,
sounds good. Because if your
yeah,
career depends on software, it's nice to meet the people who are actually like
yeah,
using it or
yeah,
like
yeah.
building it, and you can say like, well, if you could change this, it would make my life so much better. And then,
Exactly. So, we typically will sit there and ask, Andrew, the CEO, like, oh man, we wish we had a product. When are we going to change this? We've been waiting. We got to get this changed. We need it in our company. So, but then, you might request something, but then somebody else from like Germany is like, that has no benefit for us, our giant company. And like, we don't need that. So we need this.
yeah.
So,
And
uh,
sometimes you might suggest something, and then
yeah,
someone will say, well, actually, we do it this way, and you're like, oh
I never
yeah,
thought of that.
that's
Yeah.
a good idea. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, that's the cool thing about the Expert Elite Summit. You're among people that are look tackling things in different directions, that you never thought about. So creating up different workflows, roundabouts, yeah, roundabouts. Um, but definitely try to. I think this year it's in Kentucky, which is the first time they did it. One time in Louisiana. I don't think it went well, but the Kentucky one should be interesting. But yeah, the Vegas one was pretty nice. The 3 days they would have different hotels and stuff like that, and then you get to meet all the expert elite team leaders and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
have meetings and dinners. We would go to dinner and stuff like that. So, but
Yeah.
the
It's
the whole
definitely
thing
something I
is
want to do at some
collaborating
point.
and
Yeah.
networking. sharing ideas and stuff like that. So, but yeah. Um, let's see what else. So, what current version of Civil 3D are you currently using at the office right now?
I think I've got 2025
Okay.
and 2024. I think the company policy where I work at currently is to try and stay 1 year behind the
Okay.
current version. But I think I had the latest version installed as well. I
Hmm.
think because I was also the IT admin, I can sort of install software and I have
Mm,
the like the credentials to do it.
yeah.
Although I'm not the IT admin anymore, they've put that to a third party corporation. But I think I like new things. I like the new
Yeah.
software. I'm like, oh, there's a new feature.
Yeah.
I have to have it.
Yeah.
So I think I've got 2025 and also the latest version of
Hmm.
InfoWorks as well, I think.
Hmm.
I actually don't think InfoWorks 2024 works on anything that's newer than the version you're on.
Yeah. It won't let you go. So, but yeah, I've just recently downloaded all the, even though I'm on the beta team, which I highly encourage you as a expert elite to go join the feedback, the beta team.
Hmm.
That way you can play with the product for 6 months before the public sees it, and break it. And then you're prepared to release, if you are going to release that to your company, you've already got it prepared. If there is a bug, you already found a workaround. And that's what I did as a CAD manager. It was out, was it? I think it was 2026 was released this week. I would be doing a brown bag this coming Monday for the whole company and say, hey, 2026 is on your desk. I would install it on everybody's computers and say, here's the only bug. It has zero effect on us because we don't use that tool. Or yes, it does affect us. Here's the workaround. Boom. And as soon as people boot up their computer, it's loading 26, or it's running in 26, on there. I do leave the older version. Typically I delete the icon, but it's still listed. I just don't install, I just delete the icon. That way it forces them to click on the 2026 version, the latest version. But every year I installed the latest version every single year when I was a CAD manager for every company I was at. It was like, hey, we're using the latest products. And so yeah, I think for me, it helped me because I was on the beta team. I found bugs, found workaround. Does it work? I got the templates updated, and I was good to go. But yeah, I would highly encourage you to join the beta team. It's you're just playing with the product. There's no perks or anything really, but
Yeah.
uh
But
but
I am on the well, I wouldn't say I'm on the beta team. I do have access to the beta software,
okay,
and I do I was dabbling with the unreleased version of Civil 3D a few months ago,
okay.
but I just haven't had the time
That's the
to
thing.
test things out. And
Time is so
yeah.
so precious. Like, some people after 5 o'clock, hey, this is my personal time. I'm not going to give up any of my personal time.
Hmm.
I've always done it. I've given up a lot of my personal time to advance my knowledge and skills in the product, even if it's not just software related, it could be engineering related. I got a bunch of engineering books, not a PE, but I'm loaded with PE engineering books over here. PE exam books, practice books, road design manuals, and all kinds of stuff that I read every now and then. So it's just trying to advance my knowledge, hydraulic manuals and stuff like that. So, but yeah,
I
do
try
you,
to
do,
strike the balance because I work from home certain days of the week as well, and
yeah.
I think the danger is that like your work life and your personal life can sort of begin to mix, and
Hmm.
I kind of consider my mind like a chisel, and if I just continuously work too hard, the
Yeah.
chisel's going to get blunt and become
Yeah.
less efficient. So there are
Yeah.
times where like I just need to sharpen my chisel. I just need
Yep.
to disconnect from Autodesk
Yeah.
software and just resharpen the mind.
Yep. Yep. Is there any other products y'all use outside of Autodesk at work that's non-Autodesk for engineering or surveying or even drone or stuff like that, BIM? Is there anything y'all use outside of Autodesk?
Yes, I'm using QGIS quite a lot
Hmm.
recently. Doing a big project for the South Island, sort of like proposed wind farm,
Okay.
and it's the scale of the site is just too much to just load into Civil
Mhm.
3D instantly. So there's QGIS has been very useful for just sort of visualizing data, sort of
Okay.
manipulating data
Hmm.
in preparation for like a more detailed design that's going to
Okay.
come sort of later on. But because I did do some time working in GIS back when I lived in Manchester. I spent
Hmm.
like 2 years being a GIS technician,
Yeah.
sort of transitioned from one office to the other, and then kind of just started picking up GIS.
Hmm.
So I think the QGIS and Civil 3D work quite well together
Yeah.
on large projects. It's a good combination.
Yeah. Yep. Um, I guess on the Esri, with Esri GIS, do you dabble a lot with it, or just kind of a little bit with it?
So ArcGIS.
Or the ArcGIS, yeah. Do you?
I've never entered into ArcGIS. So when I was first a GIS technician,
Mhm,
we used I think the other application called MapInfo. So I think that was a rival to
mhm.
ArcGIS.
Yeah,
So ArcGIS is actually like a sort of a software hemisphere that I'm
yeah,
not overly familiar with. It's either been MapInfo or
yeah,
QGIS. But I think there is good collaboration between ArcGIS and Civil 3D. So I feel like that, that might be the other area I move into. If I'm not spending more time learning Revit, I
yeah,
think I would like to enter into ArcGIS world and
yeah,
see how those
yeah.
software collaborate.
Yeah, you can do a lot in the Esri and ArcGIS products and stuff like that. I've been going the route with hydrology and hydraulics, so I've been learning info drainage, and I use SSA and I use HydroFlow Express tools and other third-party hydraulics tools and hydraulic spreadsheets and stuff like that. So my curve always goes towards hydrology and hydraulics and stuff like that. So, but that's kind of
I
the
think
beauty about our industry. You can go hydrology, or you can do transportation, or you can go geotechnical, geotech, or you can go, so many different routes. And that's kind of
hmm.
cool thing about our industry. So, um,
So I think we're still using like HECRES and RMS
yep,
for
yep, yep. People still use
which
it a
is
lot here. So, I used it back in the late '90s. In the early 2000s, I used HEC-RAS. So the I would do simple stuff and simple calculations and stuff like that, but then I would send it off to hydraulic engineer to double check and do the fine tuning and stuff. So I knew just enough to be dangerous in HEC-RAS modeling and stuff like that. So, but now I've
yeah.
totally forgot. I don't know if you recall. Remember they had a module called River, and you can bring in some of that HEC-RAS stuff into Civil 3D. It was a
Vaguely,
module that you can install. Uh,
to be
and
honest, I've not really had much time with HECRES. It's
yeah, it
I've
was,
kind of used every other software package in the office
yeah,
apart from HECRES.
HEC-RAS. Do you ever dabble with raster design for image manipulation?
I've I did dabble with raster design
Mm,
quite a few years ago, but
mm,
I kind of I know it's I think it's a very underappreciated program. I think it can do a lot of really cool things.
mm,
I kind of just use QGIS now if
mm.
because
Yeah,
I think the only images I really need to manipulate are like sort of large sort of
mm,
raster dem surfaces,
yeah,
sort of like shrinking them
yeah.
or sort of changing the resolution. And I find just QGIS kind of just does all of that
They're
sort
better.
of natively.
Yeah, better. What I've learned from experience is the one software that it's either they love it or they hate it is recap. Okay.
Mm.
When you're dealing with LiDAR, and I don't know, I can't speak for your experience, but talking to drone pilots and those survey companies, some companies, they hate it, love recap. And someone's like, no, that's garbage. We hate it, and then we'll never use it. We're going to use, our Leica products and other third-party applications, and was it Pix 4D and all that stuff. So, what has been your experience? I don't know if you've dabbled a lot with LiDAR data and point cloud stuff. So, what's been y'all's experience with it?
I've dabbled with it a little bit. We mostly, when we receive survey information, it's already in like sort of a tin surface.
Hmm.
And I think there's certain restrictions where we're not really supposed to manipulate raw data from surveyors. It's the
Yeah,
surveyor's job to provide us the data.
yeah.
But there have been times where we've basically had access to a point cloud.
Hmm.
And I think like, well, we've got the surface data we need, but
Yeah,
there's possibly more information that might
yeah,
be useful for this project as well, like the
yeah,
location of trees. So I have dabbled with cloud data, and I think recap it's kind of maybe the opposite of AutoCAD in the sense that maybe it's almost too simple. Like I think there's a lot of depth in other software where recap does some workflows very well, but
yeah,
there's possibly not enough depth in the software
yeah,
currently for
yeah,
more experienced users to enjoy. So
mm,
I quite like recap being
yeah,
someone who's quite sort of young in this
yeah.
area. But I think more experienced people, I can understand why they would sort of turn to something which is probably more fleshed out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I play around with it. I don't get a lot of point cloud survey data coming my direction, but I do use it maybe twice a year at the most,
Hmm.
and to go in there and just do something very simple and create a surface and then bring it back into Civil 3D. Or I might bring it into InfoWorks, and bring that point cloud in InfoWorks to bring in and create the curbing and the striping and stuff like that. So something simple,
I
to do
think there's
simple
a
sections.
lot of sort of opportunity there because I think we still get survey information where it's just polylines and
Mhm.
I need to say like, oh, this is the curb line, this is a manhole and
Yeah.
stuff where I think there are features in Recap where it can automatically generate your survey lines, like
Mhm.
following the
Yep.
curb or like barrier and
Yep.
stuff. But this is sort of beyond me, and I
Yeah.
think if they were to make those workflows more automated, I
Hmm.
can see surveyors adopting point clouds a lot
Yeah.
more, and it would give us like a head start when we're doing
Yeah.
like existing site drawings.
Yeah.
Oh, this is already identified as a curb. This is already a
Yeah.
manhole. This is a hydrant. It would speed things up. So I think
Yeah.
that
Like
there's good
InfoWorks does a little bit of
movement
that.
in that.
They it recognize trees, light poles, and signage. I think those are the three main ones and stuff. So
Mm.
it'd be cool if it could pick up more stuff like the fire hydrants, stuff like that, gate valves on the ground. I'm like, whoa, you put in the gate valve symbol and block and curb inlets, even a vehicle. If they picked up a vehicle, it brought in a 3D vehicle in there, a block of a car or something. That I'm sure there probably is products out there that I don't know of, that does it already. So
Mm.
I can't
I
speak
think
for that.
InfoWorks is just such a strange program to me. Like I kind of have like such a love-hate relationship with it, where I
Yeah.
think it's awesome sometimes, but then I think going back to like how I was saying how sometimes when the application doesn't perform, there's no
Yeah.
error message. I think InfoWorks is a really
Yeah.
bad offender. Like there are some times where I make models where it would work fine. But then
Hmm.
when I close the model down, I can never open it again. And the
Oh
reason
yeah.
why is because the file string was too long. And it's just
Oh.
like, why didn't you tell me that? Like I've spent, half an hour putting together this
Yeah.
model, but now I can never open it again. It's just
Yeah.
there's too many. It's like a fantastic application, but there's
Yeah.
some pitfalls that need to be sort of ironed out, I think.
The one thing I do like about InfoWorks, it's very user friendly. You could probably master that thing in 2 or 3 months. It's so user friendly because there's not a
Hmm.
lot you can do with it, but do simple conceptual road layouts, and then I'll take it and bring it in Civil 3D and do the fine tuning. So, for example, a roundabout, I just brought in a bunch of lines in there, and draw my center lines of my road and do the conceptual roundabout in InfoWorks, and then push it back to Civil 3D and then do the actual design and tweaking and stuff like that. If I don't want to use the roundabout tool in Civil 3D, but or I do sometimes I'll use InfoWorks for simple drainage analysis. I like their drainage tool. I do like their drainage tool. It works 80% of the time pretty good. Sometimes I compared it to an as-built plan and it was spot on. Their drainage watershed reduced. But I do use the watershed tool a lot to just do simple conceptual drainage analysis or even a culvert sizing or something like that. But yeah. Um,
I
but
think it's great
I
because I
would say
think,
I
yeah.
did a training one time. This was very interesting how user-friendly it is. So people don't understand how user-friendly it is. I was doing an InfoWorks training, and the students brought in a real project. So they were building a 3D model. By the time we got done, he completed the 3D model for his project, and it was not overhead. It was buildable. He built this training session to the project, and he
Hmm.
completed it during the 3-day course. And
Nice.
so, and that's something he was impressed. He didn't think he could do it. And dude, I finished on the third day. I finished the model. So,
Hmm.
and he was really impressed because it is pretty simple, and like, yeah, so never thought about somebody actually bringing in a real project and doing the training with a real project, but I think it does make sense.
Yeah, it's very easy to put things together. I think it's very time efficient, especially because any work I do in Civil
Hmm.
3D, it's very easy just to drag that into InfoWorks. And I
Yeah.
think I have InfoWorks open and people walk past my desk and they're like, "Oh, what's that? That looks
Yeah.
impressive." It's like, "No, it's just InfoWorks. I just put it together." I just think they need to iron out just one or two sort of pitfalls, and then I
Yeah.
think it's very easy, very much approachable
Yeah.
for
Oh yeah,
everyone.
definitely, definitely. So, all right, I think we'll stop here. We're kind of gone for about an hour and a half, getting close to an hour and a half. But I appreciate Mike you coming online and sharing your experience using Autodesk products and your journey.
Mm.
becoming an AutoCAD Expert Elite. And we hope to see you back in one of our, Q&A for experts elites on Civil 3D. I think you've seen some of those sessions we've had. We'll give you an invite to attend those sessions with us and stuff. So we'll put this on our YouTube channel. You'll see it on our YouTube channel, but definitely keep in contact, and I'll send you some invites and sessions with our experts, that we have on our platform. But definitely keep in touch. If somebody wants to follow you, I don't know if you have any kind of social media platform, let me know. If you want to go ahead and tell them if it's just LinkedIn or if it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, let me know right now if they want to follow you.
I don't have any social media presence in engineering. I really
Yeah.
should, but my social media presence is photography
We
related.
talk. Okay, where can they
So
follow you?
if you want to see sports photos, I'm taking the mic on Instagram,
Okay,
but taking
taking the
underscore
mic.
for underscore Mike.
Okay. And I'll put
That's
this on
my
the YouTube channel so
photography
that way they can follow
persona.
you.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, sounds
but
good. I appreciate what you're doing. I think community and bringing
yeah,
people together is a really good cause. So I
yeah,
appreciate the work you do
yeah.
for this. It's
I,
good.
I like showing people everybody's journey is different to get becoming an expert lead, and you know stuff they do outside of the company. We're not just nerds sitting learning the product. We do stuff,
Hmm.
in our free time, so but everybody's journey is different, and I want to share, those experiences to everybody that, they want to learn, what are expert leads, what do they like, so all
Yeah,
right.
it's a
So,
good
all
cause,
right.
and I think you're fighting a good fight. So appreciate your
All right.
work.
I appreciate it. Well, you have a great day, and I will talk to you soon.
Yeah, sounds good.